Okay, folks, if you hear me, clap once. If you hear me, clap twice. That is terrible. Let's do it again. If you hear me, clap once. That is, guys. All right, hey, listen. Need some energy here this morning. We'll try one more time. If you hear me, clap once. Come on. You hear me, clap once. Hear me, clap twice. Okay, all right. Well, good morning, folks. We are glad that you're here today. We're excited for this opportunity to talk to you about some really important things today. And to treat you guys, like I said, when we met earlier this year, like adults, and to have honest conversations with you. That's a sign of respect that we have for you. Honest conversations. So to do this today, to be engaged, I'm going to ask you to do the following things. If you're wearing a hoodie, take it off. If you've got your AirPods in, take them out. You will live for the next hour without your AirPods. I promise you. Okay, so if you have AirPods, take them out. If you're wearing a hoodie, take it off. AirPods, my man. Yeah, you can hide your right ear if you want. I can still see it. Yeah, turning around. It's you, buddy. Take your AirPod out. Got it? Okay. So again, today we're here to have a really honest, important conversation. One that we hope you will learn a lot from, that you will take with you, you will use to grow as a person. That's what we're here to do in school, right? It's not just about learning algebra, learning English, learning whatever, French or Spanish or whatever else you're doing. It's about becoming a better human, becoming a better adult, being ready to go and do great things when you leave here. So that's the purpose of today. More specifically, we're going to talk today a little bit about the realities, the truth, real-life scenarios regarding drug use. We're going to talk about the consequences of drug use. We're going to have, again, some honest conversations. We're also going to talk a little bit about resources. I have shared this with some people, but I'm going to share it with you now. Okay? When I was 9 years old, my uncle, Alan, who was a heroin addict, died in my arms. My mother and I sat holding my uncle as he died in my arms. 9 years old. Every family has been affected by drug use. And it's here in Hall County, it's here in Gainesville, folks, you know this. So we're going to talk about resources, we're going to talk about the things that I wish I had known when I was young so I could better help my family. Because this might not be about you, but you may have a best friend. You may have a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, a parent that needs help. So we want you to know the resources that you have so you can help them the right way. One of the things we're going to do today also is just talk about who your trusted adults are. Folks, look, your trusted adult may be a parent, but your trusted adult might also be a counselor, or a social worker, or a teacher, or even a principal. We want to make sure you know who those trusted adults are that you can come to and have honest conversations. So the person that put this all together, I'm going to give them a minute now just to say hi and to talk to you about the program today. We are really lucky at Gainesville High School to have the hub. I know the 9th grade center, you are so far away from it, but this part of our school here is really a place where you can come get anything you need. You need someone to talk to, you need food, you need clothes, you need help getting ready for tutoring. Any of those things are here for you. And I've told you this before, it's because we love you. We did this because we love you. We did this because the community loves you. And we want you to be great adults. So Ms. Falcone is the director of the hub. So everything that goes on there, what we figure out, might be the best way to help you, that's all done through Ms. Falcone. So let's give Ms. Falcone a big round of applause, and we'll say hi to her.
Good morning, buenos dias. So we're here today to talk about fentanyl. Fentanyl is fatal, fatal is forever. So I'm going to ask you to do something that you're not used to being asked in school. I need you to take out your cell phones. So for the first part, you're going to participate in a survey. Just know all the information is anonymous, meaning we don't know who's answering. So it is important for you to be honest. This is going to help us gather information so we can better serve and help our students. So por ahora, saquen los celulares. Van a ir a nearpod.com. So go to nearpod.com. And it's going to ask you for a code. The code is on the screen, 37KWE. Raise your hand if you're on nearpod.com. All right, now I'm going to pass it along to Ms. Teo and Ms. Flinkley. They are going to help you facilitate the survey.
Good morning. Okay, so you all should be on join.nearpod.com, and once you are there, make sure you type in the code, which is 37KWE. We're going to give you a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds to go ahead and get that pulled up, and then we'll go ahead and get into question number 1. We want as much participation as possible, so please pull out your phone, go to join.nearpod.com, and enter the code that is right here on the screen. Again, that is 37KWE.
All right, one last time. The code is 37KWE. It is going to ask you for a name. You do not have to put your name. You can put a letter. Everything is going to remain anonymous today. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the first question. As you guys answer, they're going to populate on the screen and we will go over them. So our first question is, what do you consider a drug? We're going to give y'all no more than 20 to 30 seconds each time to go ahead and answer the questions and get them up here. talk up, but you're not able to answer, that's because Nearpod has capped out at 250. So that means 250 people are in the program, and the rest of y'all are not going to be able to get into it. That does not mean that you do not have to participate. Simply be quiet and listen to the words and the questions and have your own answers, okay? We're going to continue to move through the next question. Do you know someone who has or is actively using drugs not prescribed to them? Question, do you know someone who has or is actively using alcohol?
All right, your next question is, have you been offered drugs that were not prescribed to you? All right, we're coming down to the last couple of questions. Next one, did you find a way not to use drugs? Next question, do you feel drugs are harmful? Next question, do you feel like you have a trusted adult or peer you can talk to? Do you know what fentanyl is? So this is the last question. Make sure you answer, do you know what fentanyl is? So those of you who were able to participate, thank you for participating. Next, we're going to have Nurse Brewer come and talk to you all about her experience as a school nurse.
Good morning, friends. Merry Christmas. I have some friends in the audience that said they'd help me because I need just a little bit of participation today. So, but good morning and Merry Christmas. Go Red Elephants. Oh my gosh, how exciting. Who am I? Nobody really. Do you ever feel that way? This is that audience participation thing. They can't hear me. Can you hear me now? So I said good morning and Merry Christmas and all that. And then I said, who am I? And I said, I'm nobody, really. Do any of you ever feel that way? No? Okay. Today I come to you as a Bulldog fan, a Red Elephant fan, a mom, a grandmother. I have photos if anybody wants to see my sweet little Jack. And I come to you as a nurse. I now work in the school system. I've done a lot of things in my career, and it is a very good one. As you're thinking ahead, I'd love to talk to you about it. But see, as a nurse, I have walked alongside many people through health and through disease. I don't know everything there is to know about our bodies and about medicine. I haven't been able to fix everybody that I've ever taken care of. But one thing I'm sure of is that we are wonderfully and fearfully made. Our bodies are works of amazing creation and artistry and value. So I'd like to share one of my favorite stories with you. Dana? You may have heard this, but one of my favorite places is whenever I can get near water and near the beach. Anybody else? Okay, a couple of yeses. We'll plan a trip. But as I walked down the beach one day, way down there, kind of where Nurse Dawn is sitting, I saw this young person bending down, throwing something out into the water, bending down again, throwing something out into the water. And as I got closer, I said, what in the world are you doing? And this young lady said to me, well, see, the starfish have washed up on shore. And when the morning sun comes up, they will dry out if they don't get back into the water. That's how they live and survive and thrive. And I looked around. There were millions of starfish washed up on the shore, and I said, look, there's millions of them. How can what you're doing even matter? And she picked up another one, and she flung it into the ocean. And she said, because it matters to this one. So if a starfish has value, I hope you will see today that you have value also. We don't always treat our bodies with great value, do we? Too many sweets, driving too fast, not enough physical activity, smoking, vaping, too much Mountain Dew. And there are actually people who don't brush their teeth every day. Did you know this creation, this wonderfully made thing that we call our bodies, we can do tremendous damage to our lungs from smoking. And once you quit smoking, the lungs begin to repair themselves. Everybody okay? Do you need a nurse? Broken bones can mend. You can lose blood. And through time and lots of water, new blood cells can be made. Your body is an amazing machine. There are, however, many things that our bodies cannot be fixed. When the spinal cord is severed, it cannot be repaired. When you suffer a repeated injury to your head like a concussion, very often our brains do not recover to full capacity. Sexually transmitted diseases remain in your body the rest of your life. And when you poke a pencil in your eye, the eyeball literally deflates and is unable to recover. Can I get everybody to stand up? Thank you. Everybody. This isn't hard. Everybody stand up. Okay. I need you to stand up, please. Let's pretend right now, each of you put a pill in your mouth. Toss it in your mouth. Toss it in your mouth. Toss that pill. Did everybody do that? So what's one pill? Not much harm, right? You're still there. But let's give it a minute. I need this section to sit down. I need this entire section to sit down. And I need to this row right here. Everybody sit down. The rest of you remain standing, please. They're telling me to hurry up, so I'm asking you to do the same. So look around, folks, especially those that are still standing. Based on the number, the percentage of students in this room today, do you see all these folks sitting? That is the number of students, friends, sons, daughters that will die from just one dose of fentanyl this year. Would you miss anyone? Would you be missed by anyone? Today, you're going to hear a whole lot of information. And much of it you're going to think does not apply to you. But this is my real message to you. Wait. Put your hand up like a starfish. You have value. When you are tempted to drink and drive, I want you to wait. When you're tempted to try someone's vape, what are you going to do? Say it. Wait. I asked, when you are tempted to drink and drive or try someone's vape, what are you going to do? Wait. That is the message. When asked to take a slide from someone's solo cup, when encouraged to take a pill, what are you going to do? Wait, thank you. When fitting in is important, when you are down or angry and you're tempted to make those feelings go away, I want you to, thank you, I want you to wait. We make lots of emotional decisions based on the time and place and who we're with. I want you to remember your value. From this mom, this grandmother, this friend, this nurse. You have value. You matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Nurse Booker. All right, so for our next session, I need you to put your cell phones away, for those of you that still have it out, and we're going to give a round of applause for our Gainesville Police Chief, Jay Parrish.
Good morning. That means a lot that you would clap. There are a lot of people in here today. And the reality is, only about 10% of you are going to listen to and pay attention to what I say today. But it's no irony that the nurse just shared about the starfish story, because I'll tell you more about the starfish in just a minute. I'll be honest, I struggled with what to actually wear here today. Do I wear a uniform? Do I wear a suit? Where's Mr. Green? Mr. Green gave me one of them nice red Gainesville football shirts. I would have wore it. How about them elephants going to state tomorrow, right? That's awesome, yeah. Because I don't want you to see me as somebody in law enforcement with handcuffs that is trying to criminalize the effects of drug use. See, when I was your age, and even before then, the National Ad Campaign came up with a thing that said, just say no. And did anybody ever heard that, just say no? Definitely the Gen Xers in the room heard it, just say no. It was a campaign that went national-wide. It started in the 80s. In high school, we wore little pins on our jackets that just say no, and we put it up on the boards that just say no. And it meant just say no to drugs. When somebody offered you drugs or alcohol, you would say no. And I'm not faulting the people that came up with that campaign, maybe like the starfish, it saved a few, but we really didn't see any downward trend in drug use among teenagers from Just Say No campaign. But back then, my generation, we didn't have to worry about something called fentanyl. We didn't have to worry about it at all. We had kids in my high school that drank alcohol, underage, smoked marijuana, and maybe a little other drugs, right? And never had to worry about, we didn't even have vape pens, but hitting a vape, hitting a cartridge, smoking weed, and knowing that that one puff would kill you. It'd get you high. We never worried about it killing you. But introduced into the market about 5 years ago, it's been in medical use for a long time, but hitting our streets is a drug called fentanyl. And I want to show you the realities of fentanyl. And what I'm about to show you is pretty graphic, okay? And I've had some tech savvy people try to help in editing some of this to protect the innocent. But I think it's extremely important that you see the realities of what me and my team are seeing out on the streets when it comes to fentanyl. Then we'll talk to the story about why do you, who may have never done drugs, who may have never drank underage, who may have never hit a vape pen, how does it apply to you, and why is the police chief up here talking to you about that? Coach Lindsay, if you want to play that first soundbite.
I'm planning 911. What is the address of the record space?
Hey, it's Academy Sports in Gainesville off of Dawsonville Highway. I have an individual in one of our cars in our handicap spot. He is not waking up. He punched over the other individual with him. She's like shaking him, moving him. His mouth is open. Nothing's happening. No response.
Okay. Do we know if he's breathing?
I don't. I'm sorry, I'm trying to help with my other customers and my team members. Give me 2 seconds here.
Do you know if he is breathing?
Okay. My other partner checked him and said that he is slightly breathing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But mouth is agape and eyes are closed and he's just punched.
Okay. Are you out there with her?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Check and see if he is breathing and ask her what kind of drugs did he take.
Yeah, I'm on the phone with them. Do you know if he's taken anything, drank anything, ate anything, any medication?
Tell her I'm not the police. I don't care what he took, but I need to know what he took so I can help him.
Is it recent? Like within the last hour, a couple hours? It's just like Klonopin, it's a frequent medication.
Okay, is he breathing?
Yes.
Okay.
Slightly.
Okay.
And like barely full.
Okay.
So.
All right. Can you ask her to get him out of the car and lay him on the parking lot, please?
Okay, she's asking to get him out of the car like a flat on the parking lot.
Tell me when they've done that.
Just don't hit his head or anything, guys. Just, yep, lay him flat.
Tell her to put one hand on it.
All right, we cut the 911 call off. Not a lot of trauma to hearing that 911 call. What it is a store manager where somebody runs in the store and they say, would somebody call 911? There's a subject slumped over at the wheel of their car in the parking lot out here. The manager picks up, calls 911, and that's where you pick up on that call. He's not out in the parking lot yet. And the first thing they said is he breathing? Yes, slightly. Does he have a pulse? Slightly. And the manager as he gets out to the car, realizes that the situation may be far worse than somebody just slumped over at the wheel. You hear him say he took a Klonopin. I don't know what he took. To this day, I don't know what he took. But what I do know is it overdosed him and almost took his life. Now this next part's a little bit more traumatic. There's a lot I want you to pay attention to. Coach, if you want to run the body cam, this is the body cam of the officer showing up to the scene. This officer is running to try to get the reversing drug called Narcan. All right, what you heard at the very end was a paramedic step in and say, stop CPR for a second. There was a little bit of rumbling and talking, and I know that's shocking to see, but that's what real CPR looks like. Because Brian's body was no longer, his heart wasn't pumping on its own. It wasn't sending oxygen to the vital organs, all because of taking one pill. One pill that he probably thought was something else, that he didn't get from a pharmacy or under a doctor's prescription. And what's in that pill is fentanyl. And it is deadly. Other things that you may not have paid attention to in the video and you couldn't hear, when the body cam officer runs up and there's an officer doing CPR, the officer says, I don't have Narcan, do you have yours? The reason that officer doesn't have Narcan is because he had just administered it on another overdose and he hadn't got it refilled yet. And then we keep our Narcan in the driver's door so that when we go to a police car, no matter whose it is, we know where the Narcan is. What happened when that guy, when that officer opened the door? It wasn't there. It wasn't there because the officer doing CPR had used it the week before and it hadn't been refilled yet. We were running out of Narcan. And thank goodness the paramedics got there when they did because they had it on the med unit. Brian lived. I don't know where he is today, and I don't know how he's doing. But I'm going to tell you in a minute a little bit more about fentanyl and why it affects you, why you need to worry about it. I'll just start right here and say this. In the United States so far, I know of 2 recorded deaths from fentanyl from a high school student smoking marijuana. The leafy marijuana was laced with fentanyl. I know of 3 students who have died from a vape pen that had fentanyl in it. They bought the cartridge at the convenience store. Unbeknownst to them, it just didn't have nicotine or THC, it had fentanyl. And there's no way to control it. But there is hope, and several years ago, when I became police chief, I got to meet an individual that was once Brian. Somebody that had overdosed, and almost died, was brought back, and decided to make change because life is precious, and you only get one shot at it. So I want to introduce you to Ms. Jordan Hussey. Jordan, if you'll come out. Jordan is a very successful executive now. She's the executive director of Jay's Place Recovery Center here in Hall County. Her passion, her work, is to keep people like Brian from making that mistake again. She's going to talk to you a little bit about how addiction works, and then I'll come back and share about how fentanyl gets into your body. Jordan.
Thanks, Chief. As he said, my name is Jordan Hussey, and I am a woman in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that in March I will celebrate, God willing, 7 years free of all mood and mind-altering substances. Thank you. Thank you. It's a miracle. It's a miracle because for over 10 years I suffered from an opioid addiction, and I couldn't put more than a week together without using something. And in 2014, that video was me. That video was me, and I was rushed to the hospital, and naloxone was administered. I went straight into opioid withdrawals. They used paddles on my heart to bring me back and regulate my heart rhythm. And I was in ICU for 2 days after that being observed. And it took at least 2 more years before I found my way into recovery. Now, I'm really, really passionate about recovery and really passionate about helping people that struggle from addiction because, of course, I am a person that struggled with addiction. But I'm also a mom. I have a 17-year-old daughter who's a senior in high school. And that day, she almost lost me. So, for me, not knowing, right, that the first choice I made would lead to the last choice was a big part of it. And not knowing when or how I was ever going to stop is the challenge of every person that struggles with substance use of any kind, whether it be alcohol, whether it be marijuana. And the first choice for me, I was an opioid addict. However, that was not the first substance I used. The first substance I used was alcohol at about 10 and marijuana at about 11. So, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I got a pretty good idea of how many of you have already drank your first alcoholic beverage or smoked weed for the very first time. And as the generations go down, they get younger and younger and younger. The problem is nowadays, as Chief said, you get one chance. One wrong move, and you don't know it's the wrong move, but it's the last move you may make. And to me, that is just unacceptable. Just unacceptable. So, you know, I want to make sure that you guys know that you have somebody you can connect with, somebody that you can reach out and talk to. It doesn't have to be me. It obviously does not have to be the chief of police. It doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, but a counselor, somebody at the school, a friend. The problem is, you know, Jordan, by myself, I don't have anybody to tell me that thinking about doing and saying, hey, I did that, it's not a great choice. So I just want to recommend to you guys, if you're needing help, if you're struggling, whatever it is, find somebody that you can talk to. And somebody that's worth talking to. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jordan. And so to kind of tie that in, and the reason I brought Jordan up is we're talking about fentanyl's fatal, fatal is forever. And part of our partnership, I said I didn't know what to wear today because I really wanted to be able to relate with you. It is not my intent, it's not our police department's intent to criminalize drug use. You may have to go to jail to learn a lesson, but the reality is we're going to criminalize the sale and distribution of illegal drugs. However, we're going to get help to those that need the help. See, I can cut the supply chain and I can cut the demand chain. And maybe that way we'll stop losing lives. All right, Coach, you can scroll to the next one. We're going to go through a little bit about what is fentanyl. I know that's hard to read way out there, even for my 46-year-old eyes. But fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. So most opioids grow from the poppy plant, and it's a natural growing substance that chemists and pharmacists make into a pill that you can take, and it's needed in the medical field. However, fentanyl, like methamphetamine, is made clandestinely. That means that they don't have a chemist in there measuring out things proportionally, making sure that it's equally whatever the chemical balance should be. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. It's used during surgeries in a liquid form. I had a surgery. The doctor told me I weigh 167 pounds on a good day. And the doctor tells me, think of salt. All right, think of salt, and if you took 3 little granules, 3 little pieces of salt, that's all it takes for my body to get the positive effects of fentanyl, the things that I needed in that surgery so that I didn't feel the doctor's knife cutting into me. 4 grams or granules of salt, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. 3 was what I needed. Okay, you have marijuana leaves, you have cartridges and pills that are laced with handfuls of fentanyl. Some other things about it, it affects, it's pain relief, relaxation, respiratory depression, it causes nausea and vomiting and euphoria, lack of coordination, but it's usually used for sedation. Next slide, Coach. These are legal examples. This is the only way you ever see fentanyl is in an OR, ER, or medical facility. If you break a bone, and they have to, anybody, raise your hand if you broke a bone. If you remember the reset of the bone, by gosh, it hurts. Well, now they'll give you a drug called fentanyl. You'll go to sleep for a minute, and you won't feel the reset. So it has a positive use. But that comes from a doctor with years and years and years and years of experience. That doesn't come from a gas station where you bought a cartridge to put in your vape in. Next. So how does it get here and how is it illegally made? So we know that it's coming from south of the border, all right? Just like all the other drugs. We have it coming up from Mexico. But the major distribution of fentanyl into the United States comes from China. We talk about politics and foreign policy and forget about all that. I'm not in Washington, D.C. I spent 12 weeks there and I can never go back and be fine. But when it comes to foreign policy, China is killing our Americans one at a time and they're never firing a shot. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about the Chinese people or the Chinese government. I'm talking about the network of money that's costing us lives and they're getting paid for it because in warehouses in China, they have tons of fentanyl. And here's what they're doing. Has anybody heard of the fentanyl candy? So they're taking, say, Skittles, and they're reforming it, they're crushing it, and they have the exact same machines that make Skittles. I love Skittles. Skittles are my favorite candy. I suck on the orange ones and then throw out the yellow ones, all right? They're my favorite candy. But the Chinese warehouses are forming these and putting fentanyl in them so they can get them into our country legally, and the users can then eat the candy and hopefully not experience the overdose. Now, if they're opioid dependent and they have a high tolerance, they may just get a high. 3 Skittles get them high, 4 Skittles kills them. How do they know what that threshold is? What about the teenager that says, hey, this drug, eat these, you'll get high, you'll feel good, you won't have to worry about that test next week. A man's never had drugs before, and now he doesn't get to see the football game tomorrow night. Next slide. All right, where's it hiding? These just kind of show some of the areas we found it in. Where's Scott? I thought I saw Scott Ware somewhere. Is he gone, Mike? There, all right, anyway, if you ever get to talk to Scott, this man fought this war his whole career before he came to serve you. All right, and he can tell you all about these hidden places. Some of these pictures actually came from his teams. You see it inside corridors. The one on the bottom left is inside a human being. I'll let you think how that got out so that it could get distributed and you could put it in your mouth and ingest it, okay? But they're hiding it everywhere. They're hiding it in food, but they hide it, get it over here, then repackage it. Next slide. And then this is how we see it on the other end. Burned into needles and syringes and shot up just like heroin. Matter of fact, several of our deaths this year that I'll talk about in a minute come from the patient thinking they were taking heroin, they were shooting heroin, and didn't know that it had fentanyl in it. These pills down on the bottom right, Oxycontin. Oxy is distributed most pharmacies. It's usually the first pill you'll get for severe pain, whether it be a back injury, broken bone, something like that. Well, why would it have fentanyl in it? And of course you see it in the powdered form, snorted. If you see powdered cocaine, it probably has fentanyl in it, which has an opposite effect, by the way. And then the candy up above it that I talked about. After Halloween this year, Illinois, there were 3 cases of fentanyl-laced candy distributed to kids in trick-or-treating. That's how prevalent it's coming in the United States. Next slide. All right, facts on fentanyl. 2 milligrams cause certain deaths. Milligrams, not much. I want you to pay attention to the graphs, though. The bottom orange is heroin. These are overdoses, all right? The death overdoses. Commonly prescribed drugs. So that's overdose where, say, regular Oxycontin or Loratab or something like that was prescribed, but the patient took too many and died. So we see over the last 20 years, 21 years, this was 2022, and I promise it's going up a lot worse, I'll show you in a minute, just the heroin in common use. Other synthetic opioids, i.e. fentanyl, carfentanil, you see that purple line going up, and the combined use of them is the green line. Both regular opioids and fentanyl. Next slide. 150 people a day in 2020. You can't read all these numbers, and I'm sorry it's way out there, but that's the numbers in Georgia, and each county is experiencing it. Next slide. This is right here in Gainesville, Georgia. This is within our city limits, all right? From January 1st until 11/11, just before Thanksgiving, when I hired a statistician to pull these numbers out of our system at the police department, we had 23 fatal overdoses and, what's it say, 60 non-fatal overdoses. I had to pull a report Tuesday, 2 days ago, similar for another grant program, and we've added 6 more overdoses, non-fatal, since the 11th. Now let me tell you something, if those are murder, if we interchanged non-fatal overdoses to victims of gunshot wounds, and we changed fatal overdoses to murder, do you think this town would be up in arms that we have had 60 people shot this year, 23 murdered? I guarantee you they would. I wouldn't be a police chief, I promise you that. But we have these people dying every day. I spoke with the sheriff early this morning, and I said, hey, I want your numbers for the whole county to double this. The county's twice the size of Gainesville, that's what I would expect. So when I added our numbers together, we had over 250 overdoses in 2022, most all related to fentanyl. somewhere around 47 deaths, and probably another handful that we suspect are related that we're waiting on autopsy reports from. Next slide. This is what it looks like. So can you tell the difference? When you look at those pills, on the far left is oxycodone, we got Adderall in the middle, Xanax, and then Percocet way over there. Every one of those drugs I just named are made from a pharmaceutical company. And they're distributed with a prescription from a doctor, and you go to the pharmacy and take it in the right form, it can help you. But there's doubles up there because the ones on the bottom are made not by the pharmaceutical company. They're made by some lab in Mexico, China, Central America, where you have drug lords buying and stealing the real pills, crushing them up into fine powder, adding fentanyl in handfuls. Remember, it took 3 grams for Jay Parrish. Sprinkling it all in there, putting it back in the pill press to make it look like the other pill and shipping it back up into America. So now you have somebody that was addicted to, say, oxycodone and knows that, hey, to get high, I need to take 6 oxycodone. And so they go out on the streets because they don't have a legitimate need for it. The doctors aren't prescribing it, so they buy the oxycodone on the street. They go back, they've taken 6 every morning, 6 every night for a year, and they get high, and that's the only way they can function. But now it has fentanyl in it, and they take 6, and they're dead. Because of these clandestine pills. Next slide. You can't feel it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. It's just in there, all right? You don't know if the cart you bought at the grocery store or convenience store, because the FDA does not regulate that, has fentanyl in it. My message would be to assume it does. See, the other part of addiction, Jordan talked about trying alcohol, trying marijuana, and then later pills being her drug of choice before she clinically died and came back to us and made a change in her life, not only to be clean, but to help others. So when I have cases like Brian, and we save them, the very next phone call is to Jay's place to speak to Jordan or one of their peer coaches so that we can get Brian help and he can be successful. Because you don't know it, what effect does that have on you as a community? Well, suicides, unintentional accidental deaths, creates huge homelessness, criminal activity, because when you become addicted to drugs, you will do anything to get that high again. Jordan didn't talk a lot about it, but she shared it with me before. The sick feeling that somebody has in withdrawal. So when your body needs those opioids and it can't produce the chemicals it needs to fill that, is a disgusting sick. You're vomiting. You actually are in chills. Think if you've ever had the flu, pneumonia, any of those, and you're shaking, and you have a high fever, and you have body aches. That goes on and on and on because of the choice you made to do to your body. And the only way to get out of it is suffer through it or take another hit of drugs. And that's why it's so addictive. Next slide. Here's just some signs of overdose. What we see a lot of times before it gets to the body cam you saw with Brian. Extreme fatigue or sleepiness. Sometimes they're hallucinating. They're seeing things that aren't there. Many times their breathing slows way down. If I showed you that body cam video again, you'll hear what we call agonal breathing. It's a death growl where they're... And it's everything their body can do to get that breath. Their lungs are collapsing. They're suffocating as if somebody were strangling them, and they can't get oxygen. That's why we have to keep the blood moving in the body. Anything else you would see, they're not sweating, they're very calm and clammy, that kind of thing. All right, Coach, next slide. This is where it gets real, and this is where it gets real hard. I've talked to you today about what it looks like when a 911 call comes in. I've talked to you today about what the officers see. Those officers that did CPR, they didn't have time to go process what it was like to have to give CPR. They had to get in their car and go take the next call, so they're carrying that burden with them. They don't get to go to the hospital and find out if Brian lived or died. They have to put it on paper and go on about their life, and then they have to go home and see their families and somehow compartmentalize what they just did. But they had done it 3 or 4 times that month already, all because of fentanyl. I blacked these faces out on this picture because every one of these men in this picture are my age. I went to high school with them. I played football with them. 2 of them in elementary school, I played on the playground with them. 3 of those 4 are not with us. They're dead from overdose. I had to attend all 3's funeral. They weren't just a name, they weren't just a statistic. Their faces are blacked out because their sons and daughters are your age, and I don't know if they're in this crowd or not. But what I can tell you from that picture, the guy in the middle with the black shirt, white sleeves, sitting down, his arm around the other one, he had a child at a very young age whose mother was addicted to drugs, and he had to grow up overnight because now he had a child to raise. That's what saved him from going down the road that the other 3 did. Ironically, making a life saved his life, and he can tell you that story. But the other 3, this is on spring break, senior year, something that most of you will be at in the next 3 to 4 years of your life. So I want you to think back for a minute where you were when you heard that we were shutting the school down because of a thing called COVID-19. Think about where you were, how long ago that was, because in that exact amount of time, if you're a freshman, you'll be graduating. If you're a sophomore, you'll be into your new career or college, whichever way it chooses you out of school, and then you can do the 4-year math from there. All 3 of these men that are dead have children. One has daughters that their daddy will not walk them down the aisle when they get married. One of these has a son that is a very good football player, and his dad will never watch him play football on earth. You see in that picture right there, I guarantee you none of these 3, or 4 actually, had ever tried pills, had ever tried cocaine, methamphetamine. Those were the things in the mid-90s when this picture was taken. I guarantee you, I know for a fact, they had tried alcohol, because I was there and watched them do it, and I didn't say anything. I watched a couple of them huff Freon one night, and almost die. And to my regret, I didn't say anything. If you look in the picture at the very bottom, and the guy in the white t-shirt that's laying down and has somebody's arm around his neck, he's holding a beer funnel, where he had just funneled a beer. Because I've told you about fentanyl. That's not where it starts. It starts with underage drinking. It starts with smoking marijuana. See, that high is never going to be high enough. There was a certain group of our friends that decided we weren't going to do that. Our only mistake is we didn't challenge these about doing it. None of them died in their 20s. They all survived high school. This is coming up on the greatest accomplishment that most of us will make at that point in our lives, which is graduation. They had the whole world in front of them, but they developed an addiction to drugs early on in their life. See, I could take a handful of you right now and every one of you try alcohol, and I don't know who's going to become an alcoholic, because some of your bodies may want it and some may reject it, and there's no way for you to know. Same thing with marijuana. How are you going to become addicted to marijuana? Or is it just going to be one high and it's over with? Same thing with pain pills. I don't know which one of you are a black face 25 years from now when one of you are giving the same presentation. They all died just before they were 40, and one of them right after he turned 40 years old. They never kicked the addiction. And if you talk to them, what they would say is, I would go back to this time in my life and I would have never started. Because there were other people on on this trip and many other trips that tried the same things they tried, and it just didn't become addicted. But see, these aren't stats. These were my friends. These are the people that I still see their wives in town that don't know how to go on without their loved one. I see their kids coming through the high school and elementary schools that don't know how to go on without their dad. I try to keep it real. I try to show you how fentanyl's getting here, what it looks like to the police officer, what it looks like when you're dying, to hear from somebody that sat in the hospital for 3 days, whose parents didn't know if she'd live or die, whose husband didn't know if she'd live or die. But I want to end it with, not police chief, Jay and his buddies, 75% of them didn't make it. If you know somebody, where's Leah? I said, Leah, will you and Del Rio step out? You got SROs over here, just kind of step out. You know who your SROs are. And you have Officer Adonis that walks around here. You have Officer Ramirez. Listen, we're not here to criminalize drug use. If you have a problem, we're here to get you help. I wish forever I would have gone to these men and said, I can get you help. I wish in high school when they were huffing Freon, when they were smoking marijuana, I would have gone and said, hey, I can get you help. But it's too late. And the one thing that we didn't have to worry about that you have to worry about is when you find that laced fentanyl. I know it's very hard to sit on these plastic bleachers when you stayed up all night and pay attention to some police chief talking about fentanyl and death. But I go back to the starfish story. You are all the starfish laying on the beach. You are all have value. But if I could have touched just one of you to keep you from feeling what the families and friends of these men felt, then I've done my job. I'll stick around. I don't know who I'm turning it over to. Jesse, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Hey, my name's Jessie Emmett. I'm the chair of Partnership for Drug-Free Hall, which is the group of folks in the community that put this together today. I want to thank all of you for sitting here and paying attention, or partly paying attention for some of you. But we really, when I look around and we started planning this forum probably 4 or 5 months ago, we have lots of teachers that were on this committee. The police chief came to the board. We wanted to do something that really spoke to students. Superintendent Williams, Schofield, Mr. Green, they all opened their arms. Come talk, let us do this. You've got so many people that care about you, whether you know it or not, they're here. If you look around and you look at all these teachers, you look at Ms. Falcone over in the corner, they're here, they love you, they're here for you. In my day job, I work with the court system here in Hall County and I oversee programs like drug court, which I don't know if any of you have ever heard, but I hope that you never have to go through it. Because if you go to drug court, that means you got arrested. You now have a felony pending on your record. Maybe you were caught with pills. Maybe it's the first time you've ever been in trouble with the law and you didn't even mean, you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. It was somebody else's drugs, I don't know. But you got caught, you got arrested, you caught a charge. Now you can come into drug court for 2 years. You're going to get up every morning at 4 a.m. and call a number to see if you have to come in a drug screen, and somebody's going to watch you while you screen. You're going to have to get a job. You got to go to work every day. Then you're going to come to group every single night. For 2 years, you're going to go to court once a week. But during this time, you have a chance to kind of change your life, to make different decisions. It's one of those things that I love to do, but I hope that I work myself out of a job, that I don't have to see you come through. A few years ago, we had a student who, or a participant, that she went to Gainesville High School, and she has shared her story. She was a cheerleader. She got hurt. She started taking pain pills from a friend. She got addicted to it. She wanted to be a nurse. but she kept taking those pills because, like Chief Parrish was saying, you don't know if you're going to become addicted. You start taking it innocently, but it turns into addiction because you don't know. That's a gamble that you're taking. Got into drug court, has a felony charge, her dreams of being a nurse are gone. She can't do it because of a felony charge, because she took a pill that somebody gave her, and that started a whole avalanche of consequences. Just like Jordan said, her one decision led to the last decision. So how many of you have ever heard of something called the amnesty law? I see maybe 2 hands in the audience. So a few years ago, legislation was passed, and it's really important. We want to make sure that you know about this. But if you're at a party, if you're at a friend's house, if you like this 911 call in the body cam footage, somebody takes something, maybe there's drug use happening, and somebody overdoses, you can call 911 without fear of being arrested because you're somewhere that drug use is happening. So, kind of like Jay was saying, he wished that he had pushed his friends a little bit harder. He saw somebody, his friends was huffing. If something happens, you have the ability to call 911 without being afraid of being arrested. You've got the hub that's here. You've got Ms. Falcone who's going to work for you. You have counselors. You've got your resource officers. You've got Centerpoint across the street. All of the adults here and the folks that make up the partnership, we are here to pour into you because you don't know. You don't know what you're going to take, and that's why we wanted to make sure that the tagline, fentanyl is fatal, fatal is forever, hopefully that means something. Because if you're, be thinking about that. Are you willing to take that gamble? Because that's what it is. It's a gamble with your life. So before I hand it over to Mr. Green, I do want to take a moment just to thank everybody that put in lots and lots of hours to plan this forum. We hope that you take something away from it. And if there's questions, if you know somebody that's using, if you're being tempted to use, maybe it's your family because that's the reality. It might not be this drug dealer on the corner handing you stuff. It might be your mom, your dad, your uncle, your older brother. There are people here that you can talk to, and we will find you help, and we will do whatever we can do to help you with that. So I do want to thank all of our partners. I especially want to thank our sponsors, which is North Georgia Health System and Avita Community Partners that helped put all of this together today. And for those of you that were on the planning committee, will you just raise your hand? Because they get a huge round of applause for putting all of this together. Sophie? All right, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, before we leave, let's thank our presenters for today. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Give them a round of applause. We are a little bit early. So first I want to say thank you to the ones that paid attention. It was about 98% of you, so thank you. But we're going to go back to our third period class. About 20 minutes. All football players, stand up, please. All football players, stand up. Football, football americano, football americano. Hey guys, all football players, stand up. Let's give these guys a round of applause. They're heading to the state finals. Congratulations on a great year. They're gonna put that cherry on top on Friday night. All right, so third period, we're gonna dismiss the way we came in, up top. Don't move yet. Okay, I'm gonna allow this row here on this side and this one here to go ahead and go up.